You know, if you want to see the review for Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, you have to ask 3 times. 3 times. That's the charm. That's how you get what you want. Sandy says read, and welcome to the channel. You guys, this evening we are doing a review and discussion of Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This was released recently. I don't remember the exact date that this arrived. I just know that it's been a recent release, and I started reading it, and then I put it down, and then I picked it back up. And so it's been a long time getting this review ready for you guys. But now here we go. Before we begin, we're going to do a quick little bit of housekeeping. It's been a hot minute since I have encouraged you all to play bingo while we do stuff here on the channel. I'm encouraging bingo, you guys, for the fun of it. No prizes, nothing like that. You just get a dopamine hit each time that I say one of the phrases that's on this bingo card. So use the drop-down box below to find the link to the Sandy Says Read bingo cards. Generate one for yourself and play along. What else? Oh yes, the subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Because this randomness, oh, you could be notified about this randomness. And please encourage your friends to subscribe too. Because here at Sandy Says Read, we do books, books, and more books. Is that it? There's a merch shop. I'll put a link to that in the drop-down box below. Shall we begin? Let's begin. Because you guys, this was a delightful little book. All right, let's do the specs first. We'll begin with, this is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. It is book 2 of the Emily Wilde series. This is by Heather Fawcett. The copyright is 2024 from Del Rey. And this version, which I guess now is the only version out. No, that's not true. There is a Kindle and there's an audiobook. So this version is 339 pages. This is written in first person point of view. We're getting it all from Emily's point of view, except for one chapter. There is one chapter that is in Wendell's point of view. We'll talk about Wendell. But other than that, everything is in Emily's first person point of view. It's mostly a journal, okay? It's journal entries from Emily. So it is mostly past tense, although there is some present tense stuff going on. It works, okay? It works. I would classify this as fantasy, okay? We've got fairies. We're moving between magical realms, fantasy realms, and stuff, okay? I would classify this as fantasy. But on the copyright page, it says it is magic realist fiction, which sounds a little highfalutin to me. It's fantasy, people. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, book design. The book design, which, look, this is gorgeous. Look how pretty that is. Is that not lovely? Look at that. There are, see if I can, look at these gorgeous black birds, these silhouettes of black birds that are like just woven into the design. Those mean something. We'll talk about those, but it's just a gorgeous book. And the book design is by Virginia Norrie. And in fact, there are elements of, oh, very nice. There are elements of design just throughout this thing. You can see the pretty details that are going on inside this book. It's just real pretty. It's a lovely presentation. All right, so let me read the back cover for you guys, if I can. Y'all know I'm ancient, right? My eyes are not great. And this is reverse type off of this green. We'll see how I do. All right. When mysterious fairies from other realms appear at her university, curmudgeonly Professor Emily Wilde must uncover their secrets before it's too late. In this heartwarming, enchanting second installment of Emily Wilde series. All right, Emily Wilde is a genius scholar of fairy folklore who just wrote the world's first comprehensive encyclopedia of fairies. Let's pause. The book 1 in this series was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I think that's the title of it. Okay. I didn't read that one. I picked up this book because it was on Jennifer Brooks' list of books she wanted to read for 2024. And that's why I pre-ordered it, got it when it came out. So I haven't read the first one, but I did not feel that I was missing stuff. First of all, this back cover gives us some stuff, and so it works. Okay. I did not feel that I missed anything by not having read the first one. If you wanted to read just the second one, I think it would work. Okay. Let me get back into it. All right, she's learned many of the secrets of the hidden ones on her adventures, and also from her fellow scholar and former rival, Wendell Bamblebee. Because Bamblebee is more than infuriatingly charming, is that a comma? Because Bamblebee is more than infuriatingly charming. Stop. He's an exiled fairy king on the run from his murderous mother and in search of a door back to his realm. And despite Emily's feelings for Bamblebee, she's not ready to accept his proposal of marriage. Loving one of the fair folk comes with secrets and dangers. She also has a new project to focus on, a map of the realms of fairy. While she is preparing her research, Bamblebee lands her in trouble yet again when assassins sent by his mother invade Cambridge. Now Bamblebee and Emily are on another adventure, this time to the picturesque Austrian Alps, where Emily believes they may find the door to Bamblebee's realm and the key to freeing him from his family's dark plans. But with new relationships for the prickly Emily to navigate and dangerous folk lurking in every forest and hollow, she must unravel the mysterious workings of fairy doors and of her own heart. Okay, I wrote my own synopsis. As I do for these reviews, I have a synopsis for you, and I'm being careful in the synopsis. I'm being careful in this discussion not to give away too much. Okay, there probably will be a couple of little spoily things in here. I can't help it, but I'm going to try not to give away too much. Okay, I'm not going to spoil everything that happens in here. Okay, I'm going to try not to. If you're nervous, if you're worried that I'm about to spoil the book, there are other videos here on the channel you could watch instead of this one. Maybe this is a good time to break away, but I'm going to be careful not to give away every last little thing that happens. All right, synopsis. This is synopsis according to Sandy. About 50 years ago, Professor Bran Eichhorn went in search of Professor Danielle de Grey. Okay, de Grey disappeared when she was looking for a nexus, which today Professor Emily Wilde wishes to find. Emily hopes the nexus can lead her and deposed fairy king Wendell Bamblebee back to his kingdom, where his stepmother, it's not his mother like they say in the back, the stepmother is sending assassins after him. One of those assassins has already poisoned Wendell, so the clock is ticking. Okay, so let's go to page 169. And we're going to talk about these blackbirds, the blackbird that I mentioned from the front cover. Let's go to page 169 if I can find it. There we go. All right. Oh, how should I describe this? Okay, Emily has noticed that Wendell, he's this deposed fairy king that I mentioned, right? He is a monarch from the fae, right? And he is stuck here in the mortal realm with all of us because he has lost his door. He has lost the ability to get back into his realm where his stepmother has usurped the throne. She's on the throne and she sent some assassins out to get him. She would like to just take him out, and then she doesn't have to worry about him showing back up and trying to take the throne back, right? So she sent some assassins, and one of them has poisoned him. The poisoning took place before our story begins. He was poisoned at his birthday party, and when our story begins, he's just feeling pretty, hungover and cranky and crabby, and they figure out, you've been poisoned. This is a problem. So they're trying to help him and counteract some of the poisons. And Emily notices that he has something moving beneath his skin. Like there's something going on, like inside him. There's something happening there. And she believes it's feathers and wings of birds. Like she's noticing this might be wings of birds, of blackbirds. And it triggers a memory. It triggers the memory of a story that she's heard somewhere. And then she finally remembers the story. So on page 169, she says, I have found the story. I didn't have it with me, but Rose did. In an old edition of Beetleman's Collected Tales. I'm surprised I didn't recall it right away, blah, 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 blah. And she starts telling us the story in her journal. The story concerns a princess of one of the Irish fairy realms who elopes with a fairy from a rival court. Her father, enraged by her betrayal, follows them, lures the young man away, then stabs him through the chest with a spear of iron, leaving him for dead on a lonely hillside. Well, so the fairy princess finds the guy gets the spear out of him, saves his life, but a little shard of the spear stays in him. Like she misses a little piece of the spear. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so because that little piece is still in him, there's a bit of the poison still in him. And the princess begins to observe something peculiar about her husband's chest while he lies in sleep. It seems to house 6 dark and shadowy birds, which beat against his skin as if trying to escape. She sees them more and more frequently, even during the day, and at the same time, he begins to fall ill. The princess eventually realizes that when she removed the iron spear, it left behind one small sliver, which has been steadily working its way to her husband's heart. And one day he collapses and he dies, and these birds like escape through his mouth. I mean, it's horrendous, and he dies. And they the ravens like pour out of his mouth, and one of them pours out of him, taking his heart along, and takes his heart back to the father, and that gets on display. It's gruesome and gross and pretty cool, actually. Yeah. So Beetleman, the author of the story, or the author who brought the story to light, interprets the symbolism logically, cross-referencing this with several other Irish tales, and I can find no fault with his reasoning. The shadowy birds are, quite clearly, an omen of death. So we have this omen of death going on with Wendell, and Emily has recognized this. She's remembered this bit of story, and now she's got the story spelled out for us, the reader. So we recognize, yeah, there's a ticking clock going on. Yeah, Wendell, this, like second main character in our book, he's in trouble. The poison that's in him, represented by these black birds that are under his skin, it's an omen. It's a bad thing. But I wrote in the margin, it's frustrating how Emily isn't immediately realizing she needs to purge some remnant of poison from Wendell. Like I didn't understand why didn't we do something to like sop up the rest of the poison that was in him? I mean, obviously some poison was left in him. Why didn't we sop it out of him like right then? Like why didn't we go to the next chapter and immediately begin trying to get the rest of the poison out of him? I don't understand. But plot, right? Plot and story had to happen. Okay, so let's talk about our characters, since we're diving into Emily and what she did not do right then. Let's talk about Emily a little bit. I'm going to be honest and say I didn't like Emily. I found her to be too curmudgeonly. On the back cover, we talk about, what does it say? Curmudgeonly Professor Emily Wilde. I found her too much so. She often snapped at other characters or demanded things of other characters. When she spoke to them, she didn't just say things to them, she snapped at them. And she points out, I mean, to her credit, she points out throughout the narrative that she doesn't relate well to other people. She's more comfortable studying and researching and doing her journaling and getting ready for the next presentation that she'll give, or writing her next paper. She's a professor. She's a dryadologist, right? She studies dryads and fairy folk. She's happier when she's doing that. She's less happy when she has to be dealing with students and their emotional issues or whatever, right? She's not good with people. Just leave it at that. And I found I didn't have as much sympathy for her as I probably should have. I was just frustrated with her when she was snapping at people. Let me give you an example on page 177. On page 177, she does meet up with one of these like fairy-like creatures, and it's called a faun. Okay, Faun. It's called a faun, and it's not a nice creature. Okay, it did attempt to consume one of her colleagues out there in the forest. So it's not a nice little creature, but she does need to work with it. Okay, and it is going to give her some information, and she realizes that she doesn't know its name. She doesn't have a name for it. And what do we have here? This little creature. He looked pleased and darted into his tree home, beckoning the fox fairy to follow, and as if his presence too was nothing particularly remarkable. I suppose I should have a name for the fox fairy as well. A variety of unkind appellations spring to mind, each appropriate for a murderous little beast. But then I think of the snow bells that dot the shore of the Grunen, Gruneswag. I can't pronounce German words. I'm sorry, you guys. But then I think of the snow bells that dot the shore of the Gruneswag. Snowbell it is. So she comes up with a name for this creature. She doesn't ask him its name. Like, she doesn't say to the creature, hey, what's your name? What should I call you? She just comes up with a name for it on her own. I'm like, well, that's a little bit rude. But that's the way she is. She doesn't tend to ask people their names or remember them. She, at a point in the story, she and some colleagues are in a village. They're in a place where they need to stay in a cottage, and there are people who bring things to the cottage, and she's remembering any of their names. Her other colleagues are befriending people in the village. They're befriending people who come to their cottage, and she doesn't even remember their names. That's the way she is. That's just how she is. Okay, let's look at page 221. All right, on page 221, they have had an altercation, let's call it, out in the forest. And I shouldn't call it a familiar, but the dog that Emily has is named Shadow. Okay, Shadow has the ability to shapeshift or morph into another creature. It is from the fairy realm, and she has brought with her, Emily has brought with her a collar that she has stolen because she's fabulous, but she has brought with her a collar that she has stolen from a museum at Cambridge, and she has put this collar on Shadow. Now, she has done so for a very good reason, and this is very lovely, actually. This is a good thing that Emily has done. She's put the collar on Shadow to help protect him, okay? The collar is going to enhance any abilities that he has, and it's also going to help protect him, keep him safe, so this is good. But Shadow was able to use like the magic, the power in that thing to transform. And he did almost kill a person in this altercation that was going on. Okay. I don't want to give too much away about, basically, he almost killed someone, and he recognizes that Emily is upset by this. Okay. So Shadow is afraid of her now. Her dog is afraid of her. Okay. And so here we have this, Shadow crept to his usual position at my feet, his tail lowered. I had not berated him for what he had done, but he knew. He knew. I had removed the collar, of course. It fell somewhere on the hill, proving the vexatious Dr. Hensley correct in denying me the loan. As soon as the collar was off, Shadow was his old self again, only a little tired. He had fallen behind us a few times during the return journey, hobbling along determinedly until I noticed and ran back to him. I hugged him each time, my guilt brimming over, but still he knew that something was amiss between us, and tensed whenever I did this, as if he did not know what to expect, an embrace or a blow. And that kind of upset me when I read that. I was kind of sad about that, because Emily's dog doesn't know whether she's going to hug him or hit him. And that made me sad. I'm like, what the heck, Emily? Come on. Their relationship does get repaired. She loves her dog, and her dog loves her, and it does get repaired. So Emily's not all bad. Okay. She's not all bad. I did not care for her. Let's move on. Okay. Let's move on. I don't want to sit here and like berate the main character. That's not the purpose of this review. I'm just sharing my opinion. Okay. Let's see. Wendell Bamblebee is the next character to discuss. Wendell is our deposed fairy king. He's the one who's been basically trapped here in the mortal world with us. He is stuck. Bless his heart, he's stuck here. He's kind of curmudgeonly, okay? He has his moods and his mood swings and what have you, but he's quite besotted with Emily. He sees the good traits in her as well as the negative and fussy traits in her, and he can overlook those fussy traits better than I can. He's a better fairy than I am. He can overlook those fussy traits, and he loves her, and he wants to marry her. And prior to our story, prior to this book, he has proposed. He has asked her to marry him, and Emily is like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to be married to one of the fae folk. I don't know. You're a monarch. In fact, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. So she doesn't know. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then let's see. Another character we have is Ariadne. She is Emily's niece. I think she's 19 or 20. She's a young lady who attends Cambridge. She attends the school and she works kind of as an assistant to Emily while she's studying. Okay. Then we have Professor Ferris Rose. He is also a professor there at Cambridge, and he's a stodgy, like, play by the rules, follow the rule book kind of professor, right? And he's almost, I want to say he's almost a foil to Emily's flightiness. Like she will jump into action and go off on her own and do whatever she thinks is going to get her to help Wendell find his door back to his kingdom, right? She's going to run off on this path, run off on that path. She's trusting Wendell an awful lot. She's got a fae dog, right? She's very much involved in the fae folks world, right? And Professor Rose is like, you are too much involved with the fae folk. You trust them too much. You're trusting this Wendell character way too much. And he wants to kind of caution her. He does caution her a lot. And he wants to kind of pull her back from that a little bit, help her, be a better scholar, a better researcher, a better, journalist. He wants to help her in some ways, right? But he's very, I want to say, caustic at times. He's just very stern and stubborn and by the book. So when he gives her an order, or when he says, I'm going to be coming along with you on this quest, that is just how it will be. And Emily kind of kicks back against that. So they're always at odds. Then we have the character of Snowbell, which is the fawn that I mentioned. He's the fawn who tried to eat Professor Rose. He's not a main character, but he does help out with some things. So I want to mention Snowbell. And then Poe. Poe is this nervous little brownie. He has a propensity for baking. Like he likes to bake things, and he is able to bake things with his power, with his magic thrown in there. He's able to bake things that can help heal others, and that comes into play as well in the story. Poe is cute. I liked him a lot. He was great. Let's see. Okay, so those are the main characters that I think lent a lot to the story. Obviously, Emily and Wendell, right? Because they're, for lack of a better term, they are a couple. They have to go through their arc of trying to figure each other out through this book. Now, I did find their relationship odd. I liked their relationship as a friendship. I liked the two of them, the way they would banter with each other, the way they would play off of each other, the way they could, I don't want to say they were their yin to their yang. I didn't see them that way. I mean, Wendell and Emily both had their moments of just ready to rush off into danger, right? And there were moments when Wendell was able to just rush off into danger. And there were other moments when Wendell was like the voice of reason, pulling Emily back, right? And then there were other times when Emily was ready to rush off into danger, and other times when Emily was the voice of reason, pulling Wendell back. So it was as if they could trade off that responsible nature, if that makes sense. There were times when they could, I don't know, when they can counteract one another's more capricious nature. Yeah, there you go. Are you tracking with me here? Am I making any sense at all? I don't know. They played well off one another is what I'm trying to say. But that worked very well as a friendship. I saw that working very well as colleagues trying to go on this quest that they needed to go on, right? It seemed almost forced as a romantic relationship. I didn't see Emily as someone who was going to fall in love with this fairy king. I didn't buy it. I didn't believe it. I didn't go for it. But apparently she was falling for him. It just felt a little bit forced to me. But on pages 77 and 78, we had a little bit of weirdness in their in their blossoming romance. It was just a little bit of weirdness, and I'm going to share it with you because it kind of tickled me and was kind of weird at the same time. So let's talk about it. They are traveling to get to their quest. I don't want to give away a whole lot, you guys. Okay, so they're traveling. The colleagues are traveling, and Emily goes to Wendell's compartment, and it is just stuffed with ivy and leaves and like tree limbs and stuff, right? And it was not before. Okay, this is a train compartment. Okay, it was not before. She gets there and she says, "Once I saw what was inside, I hastily yanked Shadow in by the scruff and slammed the door shut behind us. The walls of the compartment were covered in flowering ivy. The floor had turned into some sort of stone, damp and mossy, and one of the walls seemed to have vanished entirely, offering a view of a lantern-lit path that bent towards several shadowy dwellings, turreted and roofed in green turf. Wendell lay asleep in his bed like a forest king in his leafy bower, oblivious, covered in blankets apart from a foot that stuck out. How does one sleep through a spectacle like this? I exclaimed, moving towards the bed. Then I shrieked because a flock of sparrows flew at my head. And she wakes him up. She says, "What's going on here? Did you not notice this going on?" And she says, "Did you do this on purpose or what's going on?" And he says that he thinks it was an accident. "You think so?" I paused. "Then this was an accident. Like the tea?" "No, I have simply grown fond of pointless exertions of magic," he said. "Of course it was an accident. I recall that I was dreaming of home as usual. I suppose part of the dream drifted out of my head." So they discuss. She sits down beside him. "Has this ever happened before? This dream magic?" And he doesn't think this has ever happened before. He doesn't remember this ever happening before, but basically he just spewed magic while he was asleep. So I wrote in the margins, "Nocturnal magiculations." It's like, it just seemed strange to me. It was just strange. He's having magical ejaculations in the night. Really? I just found it very strange, very odd. It was odd. And that's when she rips open his shirt because of the birds, the shadow of birds that she sees under his skin. And so it was just very strangely forced romance. It was just a little bit forced, silly, forced, and cute. I don't know. It was just weird. Moving on to page 197. Page 197. Okay. When they do get to their destination and they're on their quest, there is a moment when Wendell and Emily are out in the Alps together after dusk, after nightfall, which is when the bad fae will come out, when the bad folk will come out and could harm and hurt you, right? So they are in danger, and he is able to put up a tent, and there's more to it than that. But anyway, there's a tent and they're inside, and they do consummate their relationship. Okay. And it is as dry as that, which is fine. I don't need to read a whole sex scene with the fairy king, but there are zero consequences to this. And on page 187, they wake up in the morning and they're just, oh no, this was before. Okay, this is the end. Page 198 is when they wake up in the morning and it's all fine. But there are no consequences. And I wrote that in the margin. No consequences. There's no consequences to her having sex with this deposed fairy king who is currently poisoned. He is currently going through this weird poison thing. Each time that he uses his magic and his power, it affects him. It makes him tired. It wears him out. It's taking a toll on him each time he has to use a spell. And yet they consummate their relationship and just go on with the next day. Like nothing happened. Yay, on we go. I couldn't, it was just strange. It's like each thing that she does, each time that she kisses him, it feels like she's leading him on. She's not making a decision about whether she wants to marry him or not. And when she comes to a decision, she doesn't tell him her decision until later. I'm being kind of down on Emily. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be down on Emily. I did not care for Emily. It was odd. But you guys, the book itself was cool. There were moments of Alice in Wonderland wonderment in the book. Okay. There was so much imagination and and fantasy going on in this book that I truly enjoyed that. Okay. And so I wrote down a couple of examples for us to look at. For example, on page 286. 286. I can't. There we go. Page 286. When Emily goes into this fairy realm, she, of course, loses track of time, as you do in a fairy realm, right? You lose track of time and space and where you are. And at the beginning of each one of these chapters, she has been writing down the date, right? Because it's her journal and she's journaling. And so you write the date at the top of your journal entry, right? So on this one, she put a question mark. Isn't that wonderful? And I thought, what a great detail. What a wonderful detail that our author, Heather, has included here. I thought that was magnificent. I like that a lot. Yeah, so that was a good one. And then let's see, on page 138 and 139. You can get there. Maybe. Hold, please. Got it. Okay. We have some more Alice in Wonderland-like stuff going on. Which scene is this? Okay, this is where Professor Eichhorn is appearing to Emily. He's almost like haunting her at one point in the story. He's trying to get her to help him find Dr. DeGrey, right? And let's see. Dr. Eichhorn is saying, I had hoped she escaped the Otherlands at last, he said, using an antiquated word for fairy. It gave me a kind of comfort to think of her growing old somewhere in the mortal world, even as I endlessly paced the borderlands of their realms, searching for her. You see, Professor Wilde, I have been chasing after Danny in one way or another for most of my adult life. What is the nature of the fairy realm you are imprisoned in? As I said, it is a borderland. I stumbled into a fog one day. It was a door, and after wandering for a time, I found a little house in which several brownies were sitting down to tea. They laughed at me and declined to show me a way out, and while I attempted to retrace my steps, I was never able to free myself. I have been wandering the edges of different overlapping realms ever since. Time lost all meaning long ago. Sometimes I encounter the folk in the form of common fae, and each time I entreat them for information about Danny, but they laugh and make sport with me, often endeavoring to make me more lost. Most of the time, though, I am alone in a strange twilight sort of place. I wrote in the margin, it's so sad, and it's like dreams, right? Okay. So that Alice in Wonderland feel of these fairy realms and of this borderlands between these fairy realms, it kept coming up, throughout the book. I just kept there was this, I don't want to say constant feeling, but there was this intermittent feeling of going into a dreamland or going into a fog or going into this unknown realm, right? And I liked that. I liked that a lot because, in my fantasy, I like to be taken away. And that was happening a lot. I can recommend Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands to take you away, take you into another realm. It's a good story, and it's imaginative, good story. Even if the main character was not to my liking, she may be to your liking, and the story itself will be to your liking. How's that? Is that good enough for a review and discussion? You guys, thumbs up for Fantasy Realms. I hope that this was not too awfully rambling. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.